The story of a Danish Imam discovering the light of Islam. Reino Arild Pedersen was the first priest to perform Friday sermons in Denmark. He is better known as Abdul Wahid Pedersen, his name after converting to Islam. Who would have thought that the Imam, who had extensive Islamic knowledge, was a convert to Islam? Until he learned about Islam, his journey was not short. He took many journeys until he received sweet guidance. His journey began when he was 16 years old. At that time, he decided to leave the Christian religion he had followed since childhood. His goal in leaving the church was only one. He wanted to be free from any religious affiliation. Since then, he has become a young man with very free thinking. The young Pedersen was so liberal and secular. With the freedom of life he claimed, Pedersen tried many things. He then wanted a life full of love and peace. He also tried to become a vegetarian, but failed. He cannot fast from meat continuously. Until the age of 21, Pedersen lived under the temptation of freedom. Until one day, he left Denmark with a close friend. This time, he wants to apply yin-yang in his life. We traveled through Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Our principle at that time was that our journey would guide us to live based on the natural laws of yin and yang, he said, laughing at the memory of the past. During the trip, Pedersen discovered various cultures and religions. He then began to be interested in this. Pedersen asked himself, "What is my religion? Where did I come from?" But he was unable to define his life. He then studied spirituality in Rajasthan, India. Not long after, he became a Hindu. For 4 years, he converted to Hinduism. During that time, Pedersen was actually intrigued by the concept of God. When he was no longer a Hindu, Pedersen was still obsessed with questions about God. "It opened my interest in God. I began my official search for God," he said. He also studied various religions. He sought the concept of God. As a result, he found that all religions taught the truth, but God is actually only one. Then where is God? Pedersen also returned to Europe. He is alone and seeks the existence of God. In solitude, he cried out to God, who he did not know where he was. "If you exist, you can hear me. If you exist, you can see me. If you exist, you know my needs," Pedersen exclaimed. He hopes God can guide him. Discovering Islam. When he returned home to Denmark after a long trip, Pedersen chose to move to the countryside and tend to the garden. There, he tried to calm himself in his search for God. For some time, Yai often sat alone in his room, calling on God. He prayed that God would guide him. "I am blind, deaf, dumb, and do not know what is good for me. So give me the way, open the door for me, give me guidance." Pedersen's prayer that he continues to repeat every time. His prayer was answered. One day an old friend visited him. His old friend had converted to Islam. He invited Pedersen to explore the Sahara Desert. He planned a trip to the Sahara Desert to learn some things from the Tuareg tribe. He asked me to join him because he knew that I had crossed the Sahara Desert before. I immediately agreed to come along. The desert has always interested me. Before leaving, I made it clear that I was not interested in becoming a Muslim. "I don't mind living among Muslims, but I won't convert to Islam," Pedersen recalled. Pedersen also traveled with Muslims. Many things then became new knowledge for him. How they pray, in congregation, perform ablution, pray. He was also surprised by the call to prayer. Seeing them, I felt embarrassed. I have never felt embarrassed like that. I'm embarrassed because I didn't pray diligently. I don't spend much time with God. Time for God is only in my remaining time. Where I tend to focus on personal wants and needs, those people give their time to God," said Pedersen. Soon, he began to study Islam. He began to participate in their prayers, pray together, and discuss together. That's when the light of God entered Pedersen's heart. He felt a great longing for God. He fell in love with Islam. Pedersen later converted to Islam. After converting to Islam, I realized that this was not just what I had been looking for. Because in reality, I have always been a Muslim in my heart. I am very grateful to have taken this path and to have God's goodness continue to flow in my life, said Pedersen, moved. Become a Muslim scholar. Pedersen officially became a Muslim in 1982. Since then, he has spent his life studying Islam and carrying out Islamic activities. In 1997, Pedersen was appointed Denmark's first priest. He translated many Islamic books into Danish. Pedersen is also Vice President of Muslims in Dialogue, a multi-ethnic Danish Muslim organization that promotes Islam to the Danish general public. He is also the founder and principal of 3 private schools for Danish Muslim children. He is also the founder of the Islamic Christian Study Center in Copenhagen. Outside Denmark, Pedersen also promotes many aid projects in various countries. One example is the establishment of a school in Kunar, Afghanistan before the Taliban regime. He is also the founder of Danish Muslim Aid, which helps many Muslims around the world. One of DM Aid's projects is the construction of 500 houses for earthquake victims in Pakistani Kashmir. Abdul Wahid Pedersen is Denmark's most prominent Imam. He is a convert to Islam who has had a long life journey and is now a devout Muslim. Pedersen received Islamic guidance when he saw his Muslim friends performing Fajr prayers. He was born in Sweden in 1954 with the name Reino Arild Pedersen. After converting to Islam, his name was changed to a more Islamic one. Pedersen was born and raised in a non-Muslim family. Even his environment was very strong in his previous beliefs. However, when he entered his teenage years, namely 16 years, he began to question his own religion and felt unsure. Am I really a non-Islamist because of my beliefs or heritage? That made me leave that religion, said Pedersen, as quoted from the Ape Astronaut YouTube channel. He also wondered if there was life after death, then questioned the existence and truth of God. When he was 21 years old, Pedersen began traveling around the world. From Europe, Africa to Southeast Asia, almost everything has been explored. Even during his search, he converted to another religion. I also knew that at that moment I had tried everything. I had explored half the world and looked for every possible way. And there was only one place left, namely God himself, he explained. Then he prayed to God, even though he didn't know which God he was praying to. Pedersen only asked for guidance, if God really exists. Then he asked for the door and way out to be opened. Finally, Allah sent me to a group of Muslims here in Copenhagen. At that time, I lived in a completely different part of Denmark, he said. Then Pedersen was invited by the Muslim group to travel to the Sahara Desert. One of them is a convert who returned to Islam since 1977. His name is Abdullah Johan Tokstro, from the same city as him. Pedersen also agreed to the Muslim group's invitation. However, he said he was not interested in Islam. But what happened was the opposite. In fact, he was slapped and realized when his friends woke up at 02:003:00 in the morning, then continued with the morning prayer. Seeing them get up to pray was like a slap in the face, he said.